undergoing these kinds of
No,
applications.
no, I mean, it makes sense, because then it gives you 6 months to come up with what are gonna be new fees, how we're gonna pay for expansion, all that kind of stuff. What does that do with our contract, like with Safe Built? Do they, does that mean they don't have much work to do the next 6 months?
We still might have to do like remodels and, I mean, people that are, you know, doing renovations to existing properties and stuff, I would
Okay.
imagine, things that are already permitted and already accessing water.
And then two commissions know that we're gonna do this too? Like design and review, planning commission,
They'll know after you approve it this evening.
okay.
The design review only has, and that is part of this moratorium with DRC. They only have jurisdiction over the exterior, so building permits for the interior seem to be also accepted from this ordinance, so. The state will still have things in progress that have already been applied for. And then they also will be able to do any kind of interior thing. It would just be anything exterior
Just no new taps.
that doesn't have the system.
But technically, too, though, you could still go to DRC because you have to get your appropriateness before you even. So it's just holding up, like, say, building a house from. Right, you would let them go through DRC to get that part. Cause a lot of times you're back and forth with that kind of eats up time, not for everybody, but for some people.
My reading of this is that it would stop the submission, acceptance, processing, and approval of all applications, including design review.
That's correct.
That's the only thing I would like to see is because if you push through, like say if this would push through December and then you wait till January with every 2 weeks. You start messing with next year's building season if you're not careful.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I think that the reasoning behind this, Jerry, is because as soon as they submit an application, the clock is now running for staff to respond in a certain period of time. And if we don't, then there's an affirmative action by us missing deadlines. So by not accepting that site plan or whatever they are submitting, then we do not have that clock ticking.
Gotcha, because before you go to DRC, you have to have.
We have to do it by a certain amount of time or they are then by default approved.
And let's remember that the base reason for this, so the growth reason is water system capacity.
Yes.
So the fact that it might delay some projects, if projects are allowed to go through, then that commits capacity with the town, signing off on the infrastructure to support.
Well, I was just looking at it from the different side of design review helps get the process going, but you're right with the checkoff sheet. Because a lot of times as you go through DRC and you're changing your plans accordingly to fit the design. But now I see the other side of it too, which makes sense.
And believe
No,
me,
it makes total sense, and I'm 100% in support of it, it has to be done, and better now than in a year which we have problems.
we want to move along with this development. We just want to make sure it's smart. And that we're using the new development fees because we want this upgrade to happen on the water system.
Yeah, seriously, Robert.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Any other questions?
Jerry, I wanna make sure I understand, does this stop all DRC applications or just DRC applications for projects that would include a development fee?
Well, it's approval of all applications under the land use code. So the answer is yes, all DRC applications other than Bighorn Phase 2.
Okay.
So would that mean if somebody,
Want a new window?
yeah, or a fence? Does a fence fall into the land use code, right?
Well, that would be an exception. That could be presented as an exception, correct?
Yes, I suppose you could, I mean, you could say in section 2 might be the place to put it, well, terms it's, on reasonable application of the land use code, couldn't tell area, they are all which and design review, which, which would, I'm thinking out loud, so give me a break, which would result in, the requirement of a new water tap.
There, okay, yeah.
I think that will work. So if you've got someone that's already got a tap and wants to build their house, go for it. They've already got a tap. We're committed to them already. We know that.
I like that, that's,
Yeah.
I know there's a few people that are wanting stuff done still with windows and such, it has nothing to do with the mortar.
So if that's a change you'd like to add, then you add that to the end of the first sentence under section 2 after it says in design review, comma, which would require a new water tap. And you're welcome when you're ready for motion, Dr. Emerson, see what the changes now.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
So we have a motion as stated in the memorandum with the addition of that language regarding the water tap. Okay, first was Rob, I'm sorry, first was Dwayne. First Rob, second Dwayne. All those in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. That ordinance number 3 has passed. Next up is the proposed KRW correspondence that Town Administrator Durham has put together, and I'll let you speak to that.
thank you, I think it was the last meeting where, the, question was asked about my checking on the ARW's willingness to honor their 12-month warranty for the police chief, search. There was talk of flipping tables and things like that, and so I followed up with Jerry and asked him to prepare a letter to KRW asking for clarification on whether they intended to honor their warranty or whether the town should be taking other actions. So Jerry's draft was very well done, and you can see it presented to you this evening, and I'm asking whether the board would direct me officially to send this and stand by it this evening and see what ARW's response would be.
So, do we have a case?
They said that it's some, I mean, they gave us an express warranty, 12 months. If the person does complete, at least 12 months of due to the position, due to performance issues or resign voluntarily. It's exactly what he did 2 weeks later or so. Yeah. It doesn't say, but no warranty if they resign and here's why, or they resign and they really gave up, a house in Kansas. That was the reason given to Mr. Durham by
Wait, what?
when Dennis can report better than I can, but when he
You should
talk to-
your mom to make it seem.
when we talked to Mr. Kramer, we got an email back saying, well, we think we've done enough, and gee, Mr. Trechter, went through a lot of effort here and left house and a job in Kansas, and gosh, well, irrelevant to the express warranty that just says if you resign voluntarily, and here's the warranty. Period, there's not an exception. And they sort of slid off of that, so. The letter in part is designed to get them on record to either back up their warranty or say that they will not.
Do you have a conversation?
No, I haven't.
Do you think that's a good idea?
You've got an entitlement to a warranty. Now, the question is if your intentions are that you won't be needing it for other reasons, then fine, but if you have the right to demand that they perform another search. And that search will mean, that means another search.
Well, it begs the question, do you think they're gonna follow through on what they, do you think we're gonna get our money's worth? I think we're gonna get what we paid for here. We discussed this.
I think that it doesn't cost anything to send a letter and get a response.
Sure.
And then that will clarify the situation a little bit better
Got it.
on the record, as Gary has said, and we will be no less where we are at today, and that's a better position, I think, knowing where we stand. If the board wants the opportunity to move forward with another search, I think you want to at least clarify this before we move forward.
All right.
But it's fair to the money we spent, that money that we
Right.
spent for sure taxpayers that we owe it to them.
Yeah.
To at least
ask the
Just
question.
get an answer from them.
Yes,
You bought a search, and let's remember you bought a warranty.
Yeah.
You know, when you buy a piece of equipment, you buy the equipment and you buy a warranty that has value. Part of the whatever $18,000 paid was to buy the warranty as well.
Any other questions or comments on the letter? Do I hear a motion to have, Town Administrator Durham go ahead and send this letter?
Oh, can I have it, please? I motion for,
I so motion.
So motion.
I motion for, town administrator Durham to send this correspondence to KRW.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. That letter has passed. Next item is the Freestone contract review, and you have something in your packet about that. And again, Town Administrator Durham will speak to that.
Thank you. I pulled the Freestone proposal from March as asked by the board. I have presented it to you this evening. I think it was the one that was dated March 5th, so it is in front of you. Q gave me a history of payments that have been made to this point. I thought you might be interested, just to have that background. I'm recommending this evening, after spending $12,000 with Freestone and considering that we have now a full cadre of capable staff to handle communications, that we do not continue this contract with Freestone. I have talked with staff and feel that they've done an excellent job, and if we need them in the future, would not hesitate to contact them and get a quote from them so that we could employ their services again on a case-by-case basis. So that's our recommendation this evening, but as I was asked, I presented that this evening for the board's discussion and direction.
Any discussion?
I'm not certain that we got the full benefit of what we had signed up for with Freestone, and not necessarily on their part, it was on our part, because things were up for grabs. We have issues coming up in the next couple of months, most relevant to the police and law enforcement issues. There were issues raised when we first talked to Freestone about some training for all staff, and not necessarily focusing on just town hall staff, but you know, throughout our community, our road and bridge, our wastewater guys. There are times that things have been said inappropriately, that have come back and have become board issues. And so one of the ideas of Freestone providing training was to have everybody on board on the same page and know how to appropriately deflect some sharing of public comment, I guess. I know we worked hard to put Amanda in as PIO for the board. And we have relied on Freestone to assist with some of the releases that have come out, and we may not want to look at a contract for another, I mean, specifically 4,000 a month, this and that and the other, but I think calling them in after the fact doesn't help us with what our goal was when we brought them on. I'd really like to see us, and unfortunately it's at an expense because we didn't do it in a timely fashion, but I would like us to see us continue with what our plan was when we hired them.
Which is training, you're speaking.
Well, it was that and many other aspects, and yeah, I mean, they took the time, they came out, and we took the time, to heck with them, they were getting paid for it. We took the time to sit down and outline our goals, the board's goals. I think this even gives them an opportunity to now talk to the new members here and to take into consideration what Dennis brings to the table. And perhaps work on a different contract than just renewing the one that happened, you know, maybe we don't need the, you know,
Crisis
the
management,
platinum plan.
like we were in.
Right, but maybe we still need the gold plan, and I'd rather have that in place for us over, or be working on that over the next couple of weeks and have it in place so that we continue to make some smooth transitions.
They never showed up and did any seminars or anything like that. did
No,
they?
it was.
But it wasn't
on-
coordinated.
It was on our, it was on other town staff to coordinate and schedule. And then when we had transitions in town staff, a lot of that ended up going by the wayside, and we basically kind of said in March that we needed to just put a pin in things with election transitions and leadership transitions. They were fully prepared to do it, and I know that I interfaced with them probably the most,
Probably.
and Mary was not far behind. There is value in what they bring to the table. I do agree that we don't need a $4,000 a month investment from the town, especially when we have other budget line items that we're trying to come up with, but I don't want to just cut them loose, and I'm not 100% comfortable with us just going like, we'll call you if like something terrible happens in the immediate. I would like to maybe try to do another month, but I wanna see what they could do on the contract for us. So my preference would be a tabling on this tonight. A follow-up conversation on what we could get from them through the police. But I understand, I agree with the town staff recommendation that a $4,000 investment is probably too lofty. And I would like to see if they would be willing to still honor what we did give them money for, which would be that training. And I do think that they would, I mean.
Well, yeah, let's go through the contract and say, you know what, these are the two things that we really felt like we needed, I'm just coming up with
Yeah, that we
two.
didn't get, right.
And what would that cost us, kind of thing, as opposed to maybe a month to month thing?
I will say I'm very much more confident in town staff's ability to navigate, but I think we still have a lot of things that are gonna come, like.
So were there two items to go back to Freestone about? One
No,
is training?
I'm just coming up
Okay,
with
okay, you were just.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
a
gotcha.
random number.
I think
Okay.
we have we're in a better place than we were.
Mm-hmm.
I feel good about the place. But I think the biggest concerns I have in the next few months would probably honestly be the decision. And how is with the police
Right,
and how we navigate that
okay.
and what that looks like. And cause I think none of us know. None of us can say right now what's gonna happen with the police. And so I would like to examine the contract a little bit further and bring it back for like a final discussion, if that would be my preference, but I am obviously just one person.
Well, I mean, there's definitely value in it. We had value then. We're gonna need the value again for sure. Like a
Hopefully not.
refresher course, well, in a certain perspective, we will. A refresher course that we never really got. I mean, I think we all make a great team. We have the right.
They spent a lot
place.
more time with me than they did anybody else, and I did do more of the training, because I made myself available to it, especially after I was voted as the PIO by the board. But I do think that there is still components of even if it doesn't necessarily mean that we pay them more, they'd be willing to even, I mean. I don't
Well,
think
it's
they come
worth
to
the
do it for.
conversation is what we're saying.
Look how well you talk now, so could you just teach us to talk about it?
I was careful at before. I mean, I was like a Neanderthal, it was impossible to understand me, so, thank God.
No, but seriously though, like, it is value.
Yeah, so it sounds like
I-
maybe to table this for a review of the contract and be sure that there aren't things we can go back.
Or if
on.
we can piece, like if there's, if there are situations that we know are coming and it's like we have them. On a retainer, like what would that look like? It's obviously we don't need $6,000 in December, $4,000 in February,
Mhm,
$2,000 in March.
mhm.
We don't need to have. But they're a really professional firm, they're really good at what they do. Cody and Jim are really, really polished guys, they have good connections in the media, and I honestly think that some of what they did, we don't know about because they did it
Oh,
in a
for sure.
good way.
That's
And Cody
very,
was awesome. I mean, we all took the time. Everybody got the chance to talk with them, right?
Can we perhaps sit down would you be willing to do this? Let's, Amanda, myself, Dennis, since we're the most familiar with it. Can the three of us look at the contract, the existing contract,
And let's schedule with Cody.
and just have a conversation so that you feel where we're standing and pursue it with Freestone and then come back to the board and say, we got plan A, plan B, plan C, kind of thing?
For sure, 3 hours.
The only comment,
Or 4 for Alex, cause Alex likes 4.
to answer your question, I'm perfectly willing to do that, I think it's smart. But the only comment I was gonna make is that it seems like this is happening in absence of a communication strategy. And this has to fit with, okay, who's your spokesperson from the staff? So the training of staff in road bridges, in utilities, is not really necessary if your communication strategy says the one person from staff that's gonna speak to the media is this person. And this person that is the PIO of the board is this person. I don't know if there's a need for a training session or in multiple sessions. If you have this strategy that's all laid out that says, here's how you react, A plus B equals C. And this private firm fits into the strategy this way, and this is how we're gonna utilize their talents. So I think that conversation has to happen, and let's do it. But I also would like to integrate this communication strategy as part of that conversation, because you should be able to open up a notebook that says communication strategy, town of Georgetown, and go to page 5. If this happens, then go to page 6, and it's red alert, and we all do this. So everybody knows what the practices
The
are.
policy committee can take a look at that. But no,
Absolutely, this
no,
is what you
but,
should have
but
written
it
down.
does, and it does go hand in hand. And it's part of, getting that message out to all the parties involved, and even as hard as it was worked upon at the time when it was more problematic, there are still a lot of things that need to be executed.
Yeah,
And I think that they can provide some, state-of-the-art professional PR, blah, blah, to all of us that we are going to learn and have that.
One of the things
As
that
we
we
roll.
helped with that is maybe just worth kind of a perspective is that as well intended as people were, unfortunately, there was people who didn't realize they were being lured into saying things as like innocuous, low, like away from, not low is not the right word, away from the nebulous of the situation, people that were like bystanders, and they were being like
Sure.
manipulated
danger.
and then inadvertently causing these larger fires. And it was like, why did you say that? So that's not even the
Well,
story. And so that was kind of where the thought of training for the town staff was,
Right.
that everybody understood. You don't say this.
Yeah.
Even if you think you're like talking to like your buddy, you don't say that. And even and again, you're never gonna control gossip. Gossip is gossip, and it is like oxygen in this county and beyond. But it is still that just like having that baseline was kind of the thought. But it's not that you would ever say like, hey, Bridget, I'm just picking on you because you're here. 9 News is outside, go talk to him.
Right.
But I'd be like, if 9 News walked up to Bridget, she would know, don't say that. That's kind of
But
what,
just being proactive.
So a
But also,
conversation is needed.
yeah, and I'll do.
Okay, so we're gonna table this, is that agreed? Do we need to make a motion to table?
I would, yep.
Okay, so, I'd like to hear a motion to table this proposed KRW correspondence agenda item.
Freestone.
Freestone,
Freestone,
Oh, no, not.
I'm sorry, the Freestone
contract review.
contract review. Thank you. And, table it and then have a discussion, scheduled.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Real quick, I'm trying to get Alex's email on his phone and that the timer just happened, so if you could hand me your phone.
Yeah.
It has like a 1 hour delay that we've been trying to get around, so.
There we go.
Okay, so next item up is the CML Board of Selectmen Training. This is a larger part of your packet. It's got 3 options in there. And I believe, Dennis, you want to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. The board as a whole showed some interest in, doing some training for newly elected officials. And so Bridget did some good work and did some research, looking first for some programs that the municipal league already has in place, and she's given that information to you this evening. Things that you can take advantage of, that are already on their schedule, some that will be coming up, and you see those marked as TBD. So one of the things that we're asking for you to do this evening is to authorize or give me the authority or staff the authority to sign you up for these as they come available and as budget will allow. So for example, if Dwayne says, I saw something on the municipal league's website for newly elected officials I'd like to attend, then the board tonight is giving a blanket authorization for you to call me and I can sign you up. I don't have to go to a meeting or wait for the next meeting to have you sign up for that. That's one thing that's kind of like a slam dunk. I think you should all have access to all of these programs that a municipal league is offering as the year goes on. So that's one thing I'd like you to do this evening, but also Bridget is also investigating whether or not we could get one-on-one training from the municipal league, that they send their expert on a certain area, newly elected officials to Georgetown, and we could hold a retreat on a Saturday morning where you could come in and they could give you their dog and pony show on certain things that you're interested in. The other option would be to do a staff sponsored event where we could rely on our resident expert, Jerry, if he were to spend a couple hours going through certain things that are characteristics of the manager form of government, and talk to you about the do's and don'ts and how elected officials are expected to act with the media, those types of things. And we're still investigating those too. So all of those things I think are all good things. And so with one blanket direction, I would like the board to say, Dennis, those are all great. We like the way the staff is organizing this. Please pursue all 3 of those this evening. It's not so much that I just want direction from you ahead of time. I just want to make sure everybody's enthusiastic and we're on the right track before we start spending a lot more time on this. So with that, please, if you have any more questions, Bridget did an excellent job researching all this. And if you have other interests that I don't have or Bridget hasn't put in the memo, please bring them up now and we'll get right on that and bring it back to you at your next meeting.
Questions, comments?
I love training. I think training is awesome and I think we should all do all the training.
I do. I mean, I don't have to vote, but I typically do. Any other comments, agreements, disagreements? So let's see, we need a motion to authorize town staff to allow the selectmen to approach them on an individual basis. Is that it? For training, and to also approve one-on-one training for a CML or for Gerald Dahl to do a one-on-one training with us. Is that the motion?
That works for me.
Okay. Somebody make the motion?
So move.
Anybody second?
I'll second it. Rich.
Rich? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. That's great. Bridget, thanks for putting this together. Thank you, Bridget. Appreciate that. Okay, the next item is the Lakeview Flats Affordable Housing Implementation. And, Jerry, I'll let you speak to this one.
Sure. And I've written this memo through Dennis to you, and you know, I've spoken about it. As the board knows, over a year ago now, or longer, but maybe it was longer. The board adopted an affordable housing ordinance requiring a percentage of new developments to create affordable housing, and spent a lot of time on that ordinance, refining it. As you might recall, defining what affordable housing was, what affordable housing was, you have to live in the county, how much money you have to give per county, etc. And I don't, this is not about the details of that ordinance per se. But what the ordinance does, it says, okay, developer, you have to impose a restrictive covenant on the property to restrict the required number of affordable units. I created forms of restricted covenant, one for rental units and one for fee ownership units. And the Lakeview Flats project moves forward and is placing those covenants on the property as it develops it. The developer of that property has a new attorney in the form of a guy named Max Stitch, replacing Nicole Ament. You might recall Nicole. I don't think it's any criticism of her, but she did a very capable job for that developer, but they moved on to Nicole or to Max. And as you'll see from the materials that were given, Kurt Sokop and company has been approached by or have approached this company, whose name now escapes me, Elevation Community Land Trust Group, who really specialize in managing affordable housing units from a deed covenant standpoint. And what they would like to do is to be able to allow, I know that people that own the flats to market the otherwise designated affordable units to Elevation, who would then market them to individual owners and would manage the requirements and the enforcement. I've gone through the materials pretty carefully. I've talked with their new attorney, and honestly, I see real advantages for the town here for the following reason. What we have now is an ordinance that says you gotta put a covenant on. The covenant gives you town rights, but who's gonna enforce those? As properties are sold from property owner to property owner, the town will have to devote effort to tracking the ownership of unit number 5. It's supposed to be affordable. Do they resell it for a price that's improper? Remembering that resale prices can include capital improvements you add to property. For another client, I've had the opportunity to see how that can get worked. A person who had in the town, something similar thing like this, had a unit and was gonna sell the unit for his purchase price plus what he put in as capital improvements, which included things like sandpaper and paint. Okay, maybe paint, but some movable, furniture and things that really weren't capital improvements. They were gonna disappear with him when he moved to the next house, but he wanted to be able to add that to the sale price, making the house less affordable. And the whole point is, you get what you put in, your capital improvements that are honestly put in. And I think that in that regime, I think a 2% increase similar to here. But it still has a value that is constrained. I'm taking too long to say, watching that and keep track of that is often the job of a housing authority, right? But here it would be the town's job. And with limited staff, I think we'd still do our best. And, but I believe that the town will be advantaged by being able to do this. One of the things that was important to me was that the town's form of deed restriction still apply to the property. And you'll notice in the materials in my memo, they have embraced that. And they said, that's fine. We will have our rules and regulations that will apply. They're mostly about management and enforcement. But then a rider to that will be your form of deed restriction, and we're cool with that. They gave me an example form. They said, feel free to revise it out of it to match up with the towns. So I think we get our deed restriction language with their enforcement and monitoring advantages. And for that reason, I think that it's puts the town in a really better position than it is in now. So happy to answer questions, but I think I've put together a sort of complicated motion in a memo because we're really readjusting the approach slightly, but I think the net is an improvement. So happy to answer questions.
I will.
Well, I was gonna say too, but why could, we are part of the Clear Creek Regional Housing Authority, that could easily be something that they oversee. We've loosely talked about that. The meetings, right, Keisha? Wouldn't that be something that would kind of fall under that umbrella or not?
It's something they could decide to make their job if we ask them to, but we're still in the midst of hiring an executive director. And I don't
Of
think
course, yeah.
of what they're capable of or what they want to be responsible for is clear yet.
Or just a backup, just to make sure, because otherwise, what's the point? Why are we part of that program if that's not gonna help out our local?
I was just gonna say, they don't have any projects going right now, right?
We're still.
Yeah, they're still setting up.
This-
Trying to caution the making it a real thing.
Right.
We're interviewing executive directors this week, and so, we'll have an idea of what the scope of that work is gonna be. Dwayne is a representative on the board that directs that group, so Dwayne could advocate for one of the tasks of the executive director would be to oversee things like housing ordinances for the local jurisdictions.
be a bad idea.
Well, I think it becomes a must. If that house is already gonna work, then they need to really oversee all of it, because that also funnels everything in together to see what's available too.
Does that make sense to everybody else?
My question though for
I mean, we
Jerry.
still have to get there with that, but yeah.
No, I get it.
take it off.
You've got a project waiting for this committee to get, to wrap their arms around.
So would we, if the housing authority ended up taking ownership of the ordinances like this, would we have to amend our ordinance to include them? Would we have to would it be blanket? Like, so if we approved this today in the fashion it's written now, just to get the ball rolling, when could the housing authority take on that ownership?
Fair question, couple of things. If you approve this, it really will only relate to those units at Lakeview Flats, which are on the edge of being sold.
Yeah,
We haven't been, and, they wanna sell them. But it would only apply to those units, and then Elevation would be managing the deed restriction for those units.
Maybe Elevation.
If there's a project, if the next project in town, Elevation might be interested in it, but you're not committed to them because it's only for this project, because it's being brought to you by the developer of that project. Your ordinance will live forever whenever new development that has more than whatever the minimum number of units.
This is for 5 units in Lakeview Flats 1, right?
Yeah.
This isn't the
Yeah.
next Flats 2 that's still in the process of being built, or hasn't even gone to, well, it went to DRC.
Okay.
2, no, it hasn't, so this is only for 1, but this is to help Centennial facilitate those units off of their hands to Elevation. If we were to delay in this because we wanted to see if it could go to the housing authority, granted, it's only 5 units, but it's a start, and that was part of our reasoning for going with the housing authority, is that as our affordable housing grows, that would be the management of that, and to take the burden off of town staff. So it doesn't mean that they can't sell those units to those who qualify now, they just wouldn't be under the umbrella of Elevation,
That's
right?
right. Yep.
Basically, Centennials wants to sell 5 units to Elevation to unload them, and then Elevation is gonna be stuck with 5. Elevation is going to hold those 5 units until they find qualified buyers.
Yeah.
One summation,
I think that's right. I don't wanna overemphasize the sort of monitoring and enforcement value
right,
that you get from Elevation, as you would get, no question, at all from the housing authority. I do think management and enforcement on an ongoing basis is important,
Yes,
and however you want to.
And it doesn't have to be an and or, it can be an
That's right.
and.
It can.
well, and that's what I was saying is, I mean, the town, we have to do this now, the housing authority isn't ready, we still need an executive director, as Kate just said. So we have to do this, I was just simply stating that, keep that as an option, which I would love to see to go to that, if the housing authority gets to where it needs to be, to take some of that off you guys, but.
or to go to future projects.
we don't
Yeah,
have to do
future
it now,
projects.
though, why
What's that?
do we have to do it now? Could we sit on this for a couple months, because the housing authority is taking action steps to
Right.
hire an executive director, to
Yeah.
simplify.
Yes, you could, and then it goes back to Kurt Sokop and company to decide whether they wanted to wait to sell the units when the housing authorities place would simply sell them, understanding that they would have to manage, they would probably have to manage enforcement. They would have to just sell them to individual buyers, subject to the town's covenant. Because that's their only obligation now.
Right,
And
and we would have to manage it in the
we
interim.
would, that is right.
But does, okay, so now that leads me to my next question, this program. The elevation is putting out. I understand, so we have the town's covenants, is there? Enhancements in the elevation program that don't exist beyond the town's covenants?
I think there are,
That are more advantageous for.
yeah,
for
the,
buyers.
really the ongoing monitoring and enforcement tools are robust as compared with the town. So, you know, I wrote our ordinance consistent with many ordinances around the state, but it does rely on keeping track and doing the business. I said about this capital improvement business and show me your sheet of how much you spent on sandpaper kind of thing. But under the elevation system, it's clear they're on top of that. And are, you know, at least as you read the materials, that's their job. They take that seriously. So that is an advantage, but as Mary points out, it's also a matter of timing. I don't know if the housing authority would be as robust. I assume they would be, because that would be their job.
Maybe the housing authority could take less more than elevation.
They might also be able to find the right buyers to facilitate the transaction between Centennial and the potential buyer.
Yeah.
That's gonna be part of the executive director's
Yes.
position. I have I have just a couple questions on the documents. And I swear there are only a couple. On this particular flyer that they put out. If you notice on the second page. On the first bullet, it says all candidates must have a household income at or below 100% AMI of the AMI. And ours is actually 120. Now I realize this is just advertising material. But. This isn't,
That's not affordable.
so there's some inaccuracies here that I'm concerned about.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is their program
Right.
and it will that's the program description, but their covenant and their right that will be the town's covenant will have the AMI numbers that you want that apply here.
They don't have the AMI description because they're, in this declaration, the way they describe the AMI is different than how we describe the
Yeah,
AMI.
it'll have to be the town's.
It has to be the town.
Yes.
Okay, and so also to that point, in the document, I didn't see any reference to the Georgetown Municipal Code, but that would be in the writer then, that you wouldn't have to worry about that?
Yeah, that would be in the writer, understanding that the materials they put together were materials they use probably statewide.
Okay,
They did not
That's-
write them for the town.
specifically for us,
Yeah.
okay.
I think the initial docs that we got from them actually had city of Denver and that had to be taken out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Also in this declaration, page 5 of the declaration or page 79, depending on which one you want to focus on, article 2, use the home.
Exactly. And
The first one, section 2.01, where it says homeowner must use home as primary residence for at least 9 months. I'm jumping ahead in this paragraph. And then it says only for residential purposes and any activities related to residential use that are permitted by local zoning law. How does this control and regulate that property so that it doesn't make it eligible to be used as a short-term rental?
well,
Because if you're using it only for 9 months out of the year. I am concerned about,
Shouldn't that be 12?
well,
There is a discrepancy in
Yeah.
a
well,
9 months as against.
let me see if I can answer.
Oh,
that.
well, it's
see for 12 months.
affordable housing, God bless them if they can.
I'm happy to answer that question.
Okay.
There's no declaration that can be written that will unwind the town. There's always 3, huh?
Yes.
That will unwind the town's code. So, for example, can't use property here for short-term rental, let's get her short-term rental license. The fact that the declaration says you gotta live there for 9 months. Doesn't override the fact that, well, what about the remaining 3 months? What doesn't in any way say, and you can use those 3 months for short-term rental. You might want to, but you're gonna have to, under our short-term rental code, go and apply for a short-term rental license. The point I guess I'm taking too long to make is that a privately imposed restricted declaration doesn't repeal or bring out the town zoning code. If, more broadly, if the board is interested in this, then I can certainly make sure that there's no disharmony between what they write and what the code says and what our covenant says. But I won't go through that, and there's probably other places, but I've not done that work. And I won't bother to do it if the board is not interested in. But I would say the fact that their stock materials don't completely match up with the town's code or covenant shouldn't stop you from deciding whether this is a good program or not. If you want to do that program, then I can make sure they're harmonious. But the policy question, do you want to do it or not, is what you grapple with.
I think because we have this housing authority pending. That we should not act on this yet, because this would be a primary example of one of the properties that they should be managing on our behalf.
The only thing about it is that they're going to have monitoring and, you know, and tools that we don't have to monitor these properties, and I think, I don't know that, you know, Elevation's one of those entities that's going to be here forever. I think there's going to probably be a good collaboration between Elevation and the Housing Authority once that housing authority gets developed.
But wouldn't if the housing authority is just stepping into their new program and you're hiring an executive director and you have. How many affordable housing units are we prepared to create?
As many as possible.
Okay, but right now we got.
Just going up.
Exactly.
So my God, we're gonna have an executive director who's all of a sudden got 5 properties handed to that person to begin to manage, and we're paying into the county to have them do that. Why aren't we relying on the staff in the sense and the opportunities that we have, the services that we have? Why are we farming it out? Or why are we allowing someone else to farm it out?
Well, didn't Elevation say they they wouldn't even entertain what they were going to do without a housing authority?
Centennial.
Yeah.
Centennial.
Right.
I think these are almost, they're like problems in tandem. And I don't disagree that this should potentially be held to the housing authority. My concern is that because these units are ready, the interest rates are volatile. This is an incredible buy down for the right qualified buyer. I mean, that 5 1/4 is like
Amazing.
4 years ago mortgage. Because you get 1.5 and only 1,000 required for earnest money. I'm concerned about withholding the opportunity from people who are potentially accessing it. And I have said from the beginning that one of the concerns I have about the condos, these condos in particular, their cost was that most of the people wouldn't be able to get access to them because they wouldn't carry the income or the credit worthiness for it. And it feels like these guys are cutting out a lot of that red tape, if I'm reading it correctly. But I do acknowledge I think it's honestly just terrible timing. Because the housing authority we've invested not only financially, but with our manpower into the housing authority to get that buy-in, and we certainly want to, you know, continue to facilitate that. But my concern, if we held back on doing this tonight or taking action on it soon, is that we're gonna just dragging our feet for a housing authority that doesn't even have an executive director.
Centennial has already contracted with Elevation to support this program. What we're being asked to do is allow Elevation to take over control of it. Long-term, forever and ever, whatever. It's not precluding Centennial from selling those 5 units to someone who falls within the eligibility requirements of the affordable housing. Just because those 5 units are available doesn't mean that they have 5 customers that are ready to sign on the dotted line. This just gives Centennial, gets Centennial off the hook and gives it to Elevation. We don't even know if those 5 potential homeowners exist and are ready to go. It seems that if we waited a month or two to entertain this agreement, this declaration, we would know better. This might be something that you bring back to the housing authority. Or I guess I'd like to let the housing authority weigh in, even though they're in the early stages of hiring. Does this pull the rug out from the housing authority, giving them opportunities where, you know, this was what the countywide program is supposed to handle?
On the same token, though, I think it disrupts the rate buy down potentially and it takes away, we're gonna see rates continue to go up and it's kind of already out there in the ether that the Fed's not gonna make the moves that people expect. And so I wouldn't wanna see the incentives dwindle because we held off. And maybe that won't happen. Maybe I'm just being, you know.
Years down the line, if Elevation owns these and there's still a unit for sale and the interest rates aren't this, they're not gonna be able to offer that.
I have a feeling this is for like the AMI they're asking for. This is, I mean, I'm picturing like people that work in Loveland and people that work for me and people that work at the school where I know I know those incomes like the back of my hand. This is an entry into homeownership.
But they can buy it now.
I
They
understand
don't have
that,
to
but
wait for Elevation to come along and save them. They can buy it through Elevation and
but are they
Centennial
getting all
now.
these incentives?
Yes, Centennial is offering these right now with Elevation. This is extending the managing contract.
Correct.
This is
No, I
taking
understand.
us off the hook of the managing contract. Where we're really not on the hook anyway, because we would just turn around and give it to the housing authority.
The housing authority is so up in the air that what I really wonder about is how many months away are we? So an executive director has to come in, then that person has to figure out exactly what's going on. This program is so robust from the management point of view that I don't know how quickly it would take the Clear Creek Housing Authority to come up to this kind of a standard. There also is the timing issue that we're hearing about rates and everything else. So if we were to say, okay, 5 units are gonna go, we agree to let them go to Elevation. I don't know that the housing authority is losing anything. That's the part that I'm struggling with. I'm not sure that it has a negative impact on the housing authority.
Yeah, but I mean, it'd be wrong to say that the housing authority is exactly for that. We're not hiring an executive director that has no clue to what.
To what
The housing
goes
authority,
on.
hiring specific for that job,
Right.
just as we hired Dennis.
So those
You gotta
programs that,
think about, well, I'm gonna actually think about them. You don't go, oh, Amanda's opening Cooper's and maybe her burgers are gonna wait to see how it works. If she's
Right.
opening a place to sell burgers,
right,
we're gonna go there to eat them.
right.
And I'm not saying that it's either or, but we did put a housing authority in place as part of this. And yeah, I mean, we have interviews coming up over the next couple of weeks for an executive director. When they come in, we're paying
They're
them.
ready to go.
So we're paying them. Like they
Yeah.
get paid, right?
So they're ready to go with programs like this. They can.
Yeah, I mean,
buy
yes, just like we approve stuff, it's
Okay.
going on, but if I'm on a board and they're like, yeah, we don't want this, then
Mhm.
why am I on a board for housing authority for something they don't want?
So let's
So-
look at this.
I
So can you wait?
I think you probably have some choices.
Yeah.
In the doors.
I think there are 3.
Alex likes more, Jerry.
I don't care. I like 3. No, but Alex, Alex is right. The 3 I think of, and Alex will think of the 4th. How about that? One door is, you're concerned about timing, you wanna make this rate available, say yes tonight to, this program for, Lakeview Flats Phase 1. That's one. Door 2 is, defer it, ask the Elevations people to zoom in or be in person at your next meeting and answer some of these questions. because I'm not probably the best person to answer what I think are really good focused questions that you might have for them. Door three, communicate back and say, we'd rather, wait until we have a housing authority in place. A Centennial, you're welcome to sell units or not. They're your units and they're your units to sell. They need to be burdened by the town's covenant, so make your choice. So that's kind of a range, but the first one's tonight. The next one is, well, let's have elevation in 2 weeks and hear from them. That doesn't frankly preclude you from
Right.
taking door three. And
Right.
Alex, what's door?
When does your housing authority meet again, to, not just the interviews?
We should have another meeting next Monday, Correct,
Next
Keisha?
one is on June 2nd.
which
Is
is
it,
next Monday.
is it possible?
Yeah.
For you to present this question to them and get some feedback so that we could revisit this at our next meeting?
We should have put that on the agenda, correct?
Absolutely.
All right,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then can we direct Jerry, if we do door number 2, to make sure the language is consistent with our code? So that way, if we do have these folks come in, all those questions are already
I think
taken
that's a good
care of.
approach.
Well, would that be? Would that same language pertain to, say, if all of a sudden the housing authority said, oh, no, we want this. This is right up our alley, we're ready to roll, as soon as we get that executive director, July 1st. Georgetown, you're our first project. Is that language gonna be consistent with something that we would be turning this over to them? Cause they're not purchasing it necessarily, they're managing it.
Well, if you turn it over to the housing authority, you're not using elevation, you're not using elevation.
Right.
Right.
And
You're
they're
using our covenant and the housing authority, implement our covenant.
Well, I'm trying not to make
End of
it
story.
work for
But
nothing.
our covenant, does our our covenant doesn't have any rate fighting on certain things.
right.
No.
And that's where I'm getting hung up on, is I feel like, yeah, I totally understand we have our covenant and I just. We get beat up a little bit for not being action oriented, and I don't wanna rush into something, and I would like Dwayne and Keisha to check with the housing authority. But I don't wanna let these incentives lapse, that somebody's prepared to back, somebody somewhere, it's not the town of Georgetown paying for them directly. It's going to benefit buyers that work in our community, people that are screaming for housing. And I don't wanna take away from the housing authority's mission. But I would feel so foolish if we were like, oh, we're gonna let all these incentives go because we wanted to wait for an executive director who may or may not be here until the middle of July.
Yeah, but
And that's such a game, and that changes everything. It's like,
yeah, but also too,
Can
it's also a thing that hurt you. I mean, yeah, they're offering incentives. The whole idea we joined the housing authority so that we could eventually offer incentives. But
I'm
hear me
not
out.
dismissing
If you
this.
take these 5 and this company offers that, then you're almost undermining the housing authority, because if down the road we can't match that, then why do we have a housing authority?
I'm not dismissing that, and
you have to-
I'm
you have to
very
kind of-
supportive of housing authority, you know, that I.
Yeah.
So here's what the thought is, here's what I'm hearing. We should table this. We should have Dwayne and Kezia go speak to the housing authority at the next meeting, suss this out, see what's happening. Come back, our next meeting is June 10th. Is it June 10th? So June 10th, and then we can say, hey, here's where we're at, this looks really good, we're excited for the housing authority, or we can say, hey, Jerry, here's what we wanna do, we wanna flesh out some of this language. That way, we're not engaging elevation before we really need to your point, not to make them do
Well,
work.
and realize Elevation is already offering this.
Correct.
Yeah.
So-
It's already in place.
So can we just table until next time? Are we okay with that, or what are we thinking?
I'd like to table it. I'll make a motion to table this so that Dwayne and Keisha can talk to the housing authority and see their position on this, and we can revisit it at our next meeting.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Matt, may I jump in for a minute?
Yes, please.
And I'm pretty sure Dennis is involved somewhere in here, but. Jerry, does the motion table only table it to the next meeting, or can we table it to a date?
What I'm hearing is it's tabled to the next, it was part of the table to the next meeting. So we'll come up again at the next meeting.
Wayne, do you think that the next meeting will have time to sort out this housing?
Well, it's a simple question, and I wanted to ask KJ, like, what's your thoughts? Because you're more familiar with all of this, like the bigger picture stuff, I'm still catching up.
Could I just interrupt there? I don't think 2 weeks is gonna make any difference to this at all. 2 months, definitely.
I agree.
We can still
You can.
table it again next week.
Absolutely, we can table it again.
You can table it again, the 2 weeks, the value of that does allow there to be some outreach to the housing authority, Dwayne and Keisha. And unless you disagree, I'll reach out to these people and articulate kind of what I heard from the board. And there's no reason they couldn't be invited to zoom in 2 weeks to answer some questions.
So we can hold off on
What we
that.
could do as well, as far as next meeting or not, Blaine and I can talk to the housing authority, get a little clarity, and depending on how that goes. It can either be a staff update or it can be an action item, and then,
But also too, I mean, this could, with elevation, I mean, this would be something that the housing authority can utilize and our vice versa. Correct? I mean, if they're looking at that, that could open up more opportunities too.
I think before we have. An executive director and our planning grant people that we're also seeking, the housing authority board can only really. Weigh in on something without any sort of definitive action on
It's
it.
just if they're interested or not. So
Right,
either they are
it'll
or
just
not.
it'll just be their opinions about if they feel like this is something the housing authority wants to take on, if they feel like this particular situation undermines the authority at all. So we'll get that input and bring it back to you all and let you know how that board feels
Yeah, I
about.
would love that discussion with them.
Yeah.
Does that sound, Mary, in line with your motion?
I think it's
Okay.
contained, I think it's contemplated within Mary's motion.
It's comfortable, okay,
Yeah.
and so,
I'm a little concerned. I'll tell you why I'm concerned. Does the housing authority have a banking partner lined up?
For loans,
Mhm.
not yet,
So, and I'm sure this will happen.
we don't have a bank account.
So, that means, that means we're looking at 4 months.
that's what I was thinking, right?
And I got a call from the leader of this development firm asking to have a meeting to talk face to face about the rents and the sales of these particular products of Bighorn. Just yesterday. It's weird that this all happens all together in the same timing, and so I don't want to get into a habit of tabling every 2 weeks. I think that it would be a strong message to say, we are considering this a housing authority thing, and we think that it should be 2 months. And I'm strongly encouraging you, do what you want tonight, but I think it would be good to table until we have a definitive response from the housing authority. I'd be much more comfortable with that kind of action tonight, because this could go on. And if the town board is committed to the housing authority, then they're gonna need time to set this up and make plans. So let's give them the time to make those plans.
I mean, it's similar to the same thing we're doing. I mean, as a builder. I have more respect for the town of what they're trying to do with our water resources and such. Than saying, yeah, like, this is the same thing. We're doing the same thing. I mean, maybe you lose a few people, but what's the bigger picture?
Right.
So do we want to amend the
So I'll
motion?
amend my motion to table it till we're ready. We need an ending? I mean,
Do we need
it's
an
not-
answer? Can we
We're
just-
tabling this so that we can do more research with the housing authority and.
Thank you. I know it sounds like. a
No,
small
that's
little thing,
perfect,
but-
no, it's good. And I will second that, so,
Okay.
okay, all those in favor?
I.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
And any abstentions? Okay, so the motion is passed. And thank you. So we're gonna table it and then we will come back with more information, but you guys are still gonna talk to the housing authority. Wait, we're still gonna talk to the housing authority with Keisha, right?
Yes,
Yeah, we flesh that out.
yeah, we will put that on.
Okay. So next we have up the police judge and board of selectmen reports. So I had some fun numbers from the Memorial Weekend. It was quieter than other ones, but we did have a really good pancake breakfast turnout compared to last year. We had about 60 people, I understand. We raised $368. It's going directly to Clear Creek Advocates. So that was really great. And of course, we opened the pass, which was already open, but it was really fun. And the scissors worked and this ribbon got cut. So that was great. Yay. On the borough race, that was a lot of fun. And again, I want to specifically thank the Rotary Club and Robert Smith for, you know, putting on that epic day of service and now also getting all the boroughs organized, and they were just great. We had 73 entrants, 61 completed. So
We lost some.
apparently, John would not. These numbers came from Robert. There was a tie for first place, 1 hour, 17 minutes, 25 seconds. Chris Mallerby and Emily Keener were the tied first placers. And last was Joanna Wheeler with 3 hours, 55 minutes and 57 seconds. So that was crazy. I wouldn't have completed it all. I was impressed. What?
I had to go find her.
You did?
I was running people that was out looking for her.
Oh, no.
The animal not.
Well, I'm glad you found her.
She just appeared in the roundabout. No one, we were all looking around. People were driving up to Empire to look for her and I had come back from like coming down the lake and she was standing in the roundabout and he's like, where do I go?
Oh,
She was so sweet.
oh, well, glad you found her. $2,000 was raised for scholarships. And now the big thing was the poop square. 142 grams. And $250 was won by Beth Sample, who was here in Georgetown. So that is the report on the girls.
Can I offer some on the borough race?
Yeah.
Borough race was great, but I do think that we need to work on some collaboration next year, as far as the safety in place that they give specifically the roundabout traffic control people, which this was my 8th year doing traffic control on the roundabout. And it was the most harrowing of my traffic control days.
You had over 7,000 people come to the roundabout.
I think like almost 4,000 of them
Tried to run
nearly
you
ran
over.
me down. So I think, and this is also on Packboro, and I think
Sure.
we've done some follow-up, but in the past, we've had better safety equipment. We've had like bright vests
Okay.
and stop signs or flags. And this year I had a dark blue vest and no stop sign and no flag, and all I had to stop cars with was my own body. And
Okay.
they were very confused. It was a little.
Safety vest and bullseyes.
The other piece of it is unfortunately, there was some enthusiastic but not as experienced volunteers in the roundabout as well, and we didn't have the right tools, like as far as law enforcement was the first year, we didn't have that. And so the roundabout kept getting really backed up and then really mad, and then boroughs would come and then people would honk and spook the boroughs.
Oh,
So there was a lot.
So signs with no harm.
So signs, yeah.
And they were
And so-
backed up on the highway too.
They were
They
backed
were,
up
I
on
heard
the
that.
I-70.
yeah, I heard that.
So, I mean, I've done this a lot, I've done it many years in a row, but I think next year the town should probably get some, like, we should be ahead of them. I've never not had the things I needed, so when I showed up and they're like, here's this blue vest, and I was like, do I have a stop sign? They're like, no, I was like, oh, okay.
So that's really good feedback for next year, and I
Yeah.
really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're good. I did wanna just talk about Memorial Day for a second, the actual day of. So we had a broken flagpole at the last minute, and we wound up having this huge flag that Joe Lucas, who's the veteran who spoke, had gotten and he'd flown on top of the Edward R. Murrow building in Oklahoma during the bombing. So Mary was there, and it was a great ceremony, I thought, because we unfurled the flag and everybody held it while taps were played and the pledge and all of that. So it turned out to be a really great day, and it was very rainy too, so people were under umbrellas, but still there. So that's me. And next we have, let's see, the Board of Selectmen. So Anita, you want to start?
Sure.
Well, I
Oh, yeah, I'm
can
sorry.
comment on that.
Yeah.
I think we should probably, if we have to pay for it, have a, uniformed officer and card there. And you've been enough places.
In the past, there's the first year I've
Yeah.
done it without at least a semi, like, even if it's been a ranger.
That's too important,
We've
Mary.
always
Also,
had.
I'm gonna definitely reach out for feedback so that, or just go ahead and email. police judge at town-of-georgetown.us and let me know, because I'm gonna make a pile of things for next year. So why don't we go ahead with your selectman report, Amanda?
Sure, so Georgia and I and Jess Jones had the pleasure of attending the Clear Creek Economic Resiliency Q2 meeting. If any selectmen are interested in taking home this lovely book, you are welcome to borrow it, just it's mine, so give it back to me when you're done with it. It's a really great event, with the collaboration between Clear Creek and Gilpin counties and many people from many facets of different life within the counties, so, you know, people who are in tourism, gambling, people who work for DOLA, people who are town reps. A couple of really great things that came out of it is, there's some projects that are happening in Idaho Springs, one I'm very particularly interested in, which is a transit hub. And Georgia and I were at the same table and we were both really into that, and it's actually gonna be a connection that exists from the metro area to Idaho Springs. And I would like to figure out a way for us to potentially move that this much further west, because the idea is that it will actually be a conduit for folks to get directly to DIA and Union Station. So it's gonna be a pretty important economic tool. They're past planning on it, they're into permitting, and some of it's gonna be, they're still funding a little bit tricky, some of it's gonna be bond funded, I think, some of it's gonna be through their parking revenue, which they have a big meeting on tonight, so I'll be curious to go back and listen to that and see how it panned out, because their city council's meeting tonight. And then we just talked about goals for economic resiliency within the county, and one of the other things that I walked away with is that we need to really work on marketing, what we can do to support fledgling businesses here through our own sales tax rebates and our own connections with CCDEC, how our business community can help lift each other up, like Business Promotions Commission and the work that they do. But it was really positive and it was a really great event, and I'm really looking forward to the next meeting, which will be on August 13th. I do have a request for town staff, because it's come up a few times. Can we get name tags, please?
Those are
Yes.
ordered.
Yay! Cause we look kind of silly when we're like in our, hello, my name is.
I know.
And then we had the governor the next day, it was like, yeah, so. So awesome, that's all I have for my report. Oh, Rob, and I have to change our first select.
You stole my thunder, that was gonna be mine.
Right.
Now I have nothing.
Let Bob do that. Okay, Dwayne, did you have something?
Yeah.
I kind of talked about it with the housing authority.
Well, yeah, we kind of remembered, but we,
Yeah.
Asia and Georgia all attended the housing authority, and we start some interviews later this week for executive director, so keep your fingers crossed with some good candidates.
Yeah, thank you, Rob.
Nothing.
Come on. hurry.
Thanks.
You went to the parks thing, what did you have?
Come on.
Yeah.
Parks and Rec
Community
meeting.
meeting.
That was a lot of fun, actually, I gotta tell you, I give the folks that organized that a lot of, kudos, just from the standpoint that we had a lot of big turnout. Joe Walter was there from the, Colorado Wildlife, and he answered a lot of questions, one of which, well, yeah, anyway. But, you know, the fact that it was a big turnout was really nice, because it just shows that the community's interested in some of the improvements that we're doing to our parks.
Which is great.
And I know that we're supposed to, do you want to reschedule that? Where do you wanna do that?
Well, I gotta check with Diane, leave it back from Hawaii.
Oh, you wanna wait until then?
Yeah, we're gonna have to.
Okay.
No, let's do it in Hawaii and.
Yeah.
I'll select them.
We can do it, yeah, so-
I'll support you.
You go back on the
Also-
19th.
Okay.
Flowers will be here tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right, the flowers are gonna be, also, guys, I don't know if you know this or not. But they're gonna be delivered and they're gonna, I guess this, it sounded like a last minute thing.
No, Beth just reminded everyone last minute, but
So,
she
yeah.
did tell everyone last week as well. I think just no one responded.
If you guys are free at 8:30, they're gonna be dropping off.
9:30.
You guys are free at 9:30. They're gonna drop off the whole, that gives me a bunch of time too, good, I'm glad it's 9:30. They need help just hanging the baskets just.
Oh, sorry, it is 8:30. I double checked it. It's 8:30,
your time.
sometimes between 8:30 and 9. it'll work.
Uh, But anyway, it was, I'm gonna get my stuff done early, you know, my rounds and laps up at Empire, and I'm gonna come back here at 8:30 and try to put down the tailgate, take some, you know, flowers and hang them. Hang 'em high.
Very good, thank you. Mary, would you like to give a report?
Are you talking about Sixth Street in your report?
No,
So Sixth Street, the one-way opened up on Friday. As you all have probably noticed, we do have a few people that can't seem to read the signs correctly. However, I am assured by our town administrator that that will be taken care of. I'd just like to remind you that we really wanted the emphasis BPC. We really wanted the additional emphasis from the Loop Railroad coming down. That, so they can't make the left turn, and there were gonna be some barricades. You know what I'm talking about? That was in your list. That was gonna be done like at the beginning. So
Strip six, so if they take a left, they hop on 4 times.
Our special events person, Jess Jones, you know, summer is here now, you know, Memorial Day as our big kickoff. She really needs volunteers for events, and I know everybody's busy with all the different other commitments that we have to different organizations. But if you can play that up so that as the next big one comes up, well, there's Slacker and all that, but the next big one for us is 4th of July. Just want to throw that out there. And then we had the first meeting of the police task force today. And our next meeting is scheduled for June 9th. We will be hearing thoughts from Sheriff Harris. And the idea, when's our end date? Our end date is
18th of July.
July 18th.
So we're gonna wrap this up and come back with a proposal for everybody.
Thank you, Mitch.
I went to multiple meetings last week. The first one was, they had a task force that met for over a year to get, the IGA for the fire authority signed. All the municipalities were on board, but it took us a year to convince, and some people leaving the county commissioners before we got all that done. So now this meeting that I went to on Monday, and Georgia was there also, the county's doing a really nice presentation to get probably a 2%, which is max sales tax, to help pay for the sheriff's office, EMS, the chat, and this is the only place fire services is mentioned. And there was a lot of confusion. We, hour and 45 minutes into the meeting, finally, folks spoke up from the fire department and said, hey, you are not talking about funding the fire authority at all with that 2%. So then, folks from the leaders for the fire authority said, look, if you guys aren't gonna do anything, why are we going and have been going to these meetings for a year and a half? So then, Jeremy did a very good. It's down.
Is this the one that was emailed to us, Rich?
I don't know if it was emailed or not. I just took some of the highlighted. I didn't give you the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because the leadership of the fire authority tends to talk about the fire authority going away in end of 2027.
What?
And I went to a over 2 hour meeting then on Wednesday for the fire authority. Then I went to the annual meeting. And during the Wednesday meeting, I asked the question as someone from the audience, because I'm not on the fire authority board, of that 2%, how much does the fire authority need? And it came in up like 1 million, maybe 1.2, without, if they do a little bit of capital. For them to meet, the fire authority to meet their budget. The numbers that were being thrown around, that were, the sales tax would raise, was if they still taxed groceries, it would be like 5.8 million. One of the county commissioners made a campaign promise that said, no, I want to eliminate the tax on groceries, which is basically Safeway. And then it would only raise 3.2 or something like that. So all that is gonna be discussed, and there's gonna be a decision made June I believe it's the 14th or 15th, I have to look it up. But that, they wanna decide what they're gonna put on the ballot. I think there was a feeling among the county commissioners that, hey, we'll take the 2% sales tax, and the fire authority can ask for more mills, property tax in the next election cycle. Because they have $3 million in the bank, and why not just burn that up and,
And they're already burning through their reserves.
right? But
Mhm.
but the fire authority's been asking for something on the ballot since 2021. They have so many great things that, I mean, response times are going down. They have one of the most highly trained group of folks, whether it be hazmat or road teams or water rescue of any other county in Colorado.
Isn't aren't they a center like a lot of the other fire authorities that come to us?
And
Right.
even for Red Rocks,
Yeah.
they are doing the
That's
training.
right, that's
And
right.
to me, we wanna support excellence, not,
Absolutely.
I don't wanna market somehow that the fire authority is going away if we don't do something. No, we need to support all the positive things that are going on. They are doing so much as far as data driven, I mean, they brought all their equipment back, yes,
Yeah.
Jeremy, he's
He's really
tremendous. Rotating equipment, all that equipment was leased to own and they paid for it in 2 years, that fire authority. So, and they don't need a lot of new equipment now because of that. And then even, the response times, tremendous. Why? Because they've got a staff station in Georgetown and Idaho Springs. And then the other thing, JetCom, the new, system that help,
No sign one.
for
The 911.
911. They've got something dialed in within seconds. They're already getting, during the 911 call, they're getting information so they can get out of the station in less than a minute and know exactly where they're going. So there's all these good things, and I think that's what the fire authority needs to sell. I'll be at this meeting when they're gonna decide what they're gonna put on the ballot. And whether if we if we continue to tax groceries, that's 1.7 or 1.8 million, and that'll fund the fire authority, and the county can still get funding for their initiatives.
On Friday, Jeremy sent out the full slide deck to all
Yeah,
of
did
the
he send it out?
selectmen
Mhm.
and town staff. It's gonna get really hot button with CCFA. Is John still on that?
Yes,
Okay, good. And Mark. So there are Georgetown guys.
yes. And they were, Mark zoomed in on the meeting, on the regular Wednesday meeting, which was a 2-hour meeting, and finally, I was in the audience, I asked the question, okay, so how much does the fire authority of this 2% get? And how much do you need as a fire authority board? And they started messing with the numbers, and they came up, I think, 1 million or 1.2 million, if they lowered their capital costs, or need a little bit. And the capital stuff is to going into some of these buildings.
It feels that there's a potential slant in the taxation structure that is not necessarily rooted in the best planning.
Well, what it looked like to me is the county was gonna push this thing through and then kind of leave the fire authority hanging, but, Chuck from Idaho Springs brought up our report, he's like, look, no tax is gonna pass if the fire authority isn't, fire safety and wildfire and all that is the most hot button thing. We live in a stovepipe in this canyon, and we need to have one of the best fire authorities in the country.
And you mentioned the public support, there's a lot of
Yes,
public support.
And he said if the county,
You know, having them have
he
money.
was very raw about saying, look, the county and the sheriff's department may not have the best reputation right now, and people may not get behind this unless the fire authority is part of it and it's taken care of. So, that's kind of the gist of, and they're gonna,
If that county wants
in
to,
June, they have to announce by July something, early in July, that they're gonna be on the ballot. I just wanna make sure the fire authority is getting their fair share of it. And,
But remember, the fire authority is a separate taxing entity from the county. And the county supports the sheriff's office, and the county supports EMS, and the county supports whatever the other one is. And the fire authority is here.
That's right.
Yeah, chat, thank you. So I totally agree with what you're saying, but it's that if the county passes the 2% increase in the lodging tax to fund that, unless,
Is it a lodging? I thought it was six.
whatever.
it's sales.
It's six,
Sorry.
yeah.
If they're not required to fund the fire authority from
No,
that.
they're not required, but what is being said in the meetings is, if the fire authority isn't part of it, then good chat
It may not
today.
pass, exactly.
And the
And-
county's aware that they may have to specifically say that an allocation is.
In the language.
Well, then they're gonna have to
Then
commit
they
that
have
to
to
the
do it.
authority.
Yes.
The
Right.
county is also considering reducing their mills because they know that everyone is having property tax anxiety for the recent assessments. However, and if the CCFA goes after a mill, let's just say hypothetically, you know, it's gonna balance out. Not that that's the answer either, but there's lots of, so,
There's a lot of
moving
questions
parts.
about the mill levy and the fire authority, what, was it 85 or 89 was the last time?
yeah, they never had it.
And, you know, it's almost like our water infrastructure,
Yeah,
they probably should have dialed that in a long time ago. But right now, this board in this town is already almost doubling that out of our sales tax revenue.
we committed to it.
Yes,
but-
and many of the municipalities have. But,
I just think that if the county wants to improve their optics to to exclude or not include.
Yeah.
The fire authority is just, they're just, landing on a knife.
But the
And
fire
there's super
authority is a
overlap.
separate entity, it's like CCMRD.
Right.
It's like a special district, okay?
Yeah.
They-
It is.
It's like the schools, our taxes go up for the schools because we vote on ballots, on referendums for the schools. And that money specifically goes to them, it's, the fire authority is kind of a standalone,
Yeah.
and most of the community doesn't.
Get that.
Yeah,
You know, and
right.
so it's just all
But I don't want-
locked in, but we can't ignore that
Yeah.
fact.
yeah, and I don't want the fire authority taken advantage of,
Right.
so that, county can get.
So Rich, thank you for that. That's really informative, very passionate topic. Alex, did you have an update?
I don't, but I do have kind of a question statement. We need to look at whatever money comes in from the federal in terms of grants and donations and so on, and stress test it in the event that some of that gets rescinded.
Yeah, thank you. Good point in these times. So, okay, Jared, town attorney report.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Staff, town clerk, Bridget.
Sure, just a couple of things. We've started working with Karen and Golden on the election procedure review. She's been doing our documents right now and having out some meetings soon. Excel is beginning their wildfire mitigation project, so they'll be in town working on some of the power poles. We'll be seeing them over this next couple of months. And then I just want to touch on the amplified sound permit for the events this weekend. I know that they were the one at Mother's was maybe louder than some people expected, but we did follow all the protocol and even went further in terms of who we warned that the event was coming. We gave adequate time for people to file complaints in advance, but our learning from this is to definitely extend our net for amplified sound events.
Thank
I'll
you.
comment on that.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, living so close, like right there, the only issue we had was Friday evening from 8 to 10, that was literally, making my,
I was.
closet shelving, rattle, for the base and stuff. But I mentioned to Jess on Saturday morning, and Saturdays was perfect. It was almost like we turned it down too much, because we sat outside, I'm like, turn it up a little bit, but, I mean, that was, it's like they kept increasing it. I mean, even my teenage kids, 12 and 20, so they're like right there. It was too hot for them in our house. We couldn't watch TV. It was just that small time frame. All the rest of the music was fine, so I don't know if they had somebody else with their sound system for that particular act.
Thank you.
But Saturday was awesome.
Well, thanks
So
for,
Saturday we go inside, and yeah, we hear it, we're fine with that, but it wasn't vibrating our, pictures and stuff.
thanks for letting somebody know, the event coordinator really.
Yeah,
wants
we
to,
were not
like,
hiding
oh,
stuff.
yeah, no, the event coordinator wants to make it a positive thing for the community, so feedback is appreciated.
Thank you. So for the town treasurer's report, let's start with the payables that were moved. I'm sorry, what?
You're about to.
Sweet.
Oh, here we are, we're getting the new ones. So we are going to, we have moved this agenda item. We have payables where the dates were corrected, and then Q, I'll let you talk to some other things, whatever it is.
The first set of payables in your packet were from the corrected dates. Last meeting.
Thank you.
The dates were on the original report were May 1st, was May 31st, which was wrong, and then you guys approved for April 21st through May 5th, which is also wrong. It's, so you have the corrected dates of April 18th through May 8th. Those payments. Those will just make sure everything's done properly, legally, compliant. I believe you back again to be approved. The payables from 5/9 and 5/12. The reason why you got an updated page is
5/22 even.
5/9, 5/22. Yeah. This is what I, well, not what I said. One of the checks for 5,000 for events should be on page 3. Was for we're going outside fest in Boulder this weekend. It's to promote the town. It had to be paid. They needed the check
To show up.
to show up.
Okay.
And so on your original report, on the date paid column, it didn't reflect that booth rental check cut that day and sent. The report I just gave you, it shows all the checks have been cut, but they have not been sent,
Except for that one.
except for that
Okay.
one from page 2, go halfway down.
I had a couple questions. What's a mutton?
A month that
Don't do
is
that.
so you can pick up documents.
Oh, documents. Look at- I was like, 2K mutton, what's that? So 2,000 poop bags. Understood.
In some cultures, it's okay to pick it up with your hand.
Gross, not here, but at least you get picked up.
Depends which hand.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Do it with your left hand, you won't offend it.
Oh, God. Yeah, and that's how Amanda had to leave the board.
You're not, business.
Yeah.
Portions. On the bottom of page 2, you say the lead line repairs and grants for 8,000, that is split up into as they go along section by section. Another chunk will get paid as you go. It was approved for the whole project of,
Like 73,000.
yeah. And then-
For all the different mutton.
Yes,
Yeah.
so instead of paying a lump sum, 73,000 and don't get about it, it's broken up. And it was the contractor that broke it up. For us.
It's 8,000 per address-ish.
Yes,
Are there other questions on the payables?
So just as I was signing checks today, I just had two checks that. And what is the signs that we were going on about? Was,
Signs one for barricades. In Colorado barricades, that was asked, there was a question asked about that, of what the signs were, because I just wrote signs. There were 4 chevron signs, a little triangle to direct traffic. The reason they were originally put in events, because the last time we used Colorado barricades was, that's where they came from.
And auto-populated.
And auto-populated into my system. Where it was, so found out from Road and Bridge, they were used for Road and Bridge. So the check of 189 got canceled. So if you look on your payables from, that had the April date on top. On your 3rd page. About 2/3 way down, it says barricades 189. Still shows. The events GL. That's the check got canceled. But the invoice remained in the system. So we reallocated to 1066.90. Which is your traffic from Road and Bridge, traffic signage. And general, like in the general ledger, journal entry was created. This report doesn't reflect what the general ledger journal entry will be. When you get your quarterly reports. That will be reflected.
okay, and then the one invoice for the cell phones from this payables. That's on page 3, the invoice. That's reflected on our payables is not the amount of this check.
Because if you look on page 2. It is split between, on top of page 3, that is your sewer phone, telephone. And then on the bottom of page 2,
Okay, I see it, alright,
it's the section for Mark.
thanks for redoing this.
The what? And the first you guys have all really been wanting to see and hear about is your sales.
Wait, before we move on, I mean, is that part of the treasurer's report that we need to, the payables that we need to approve, what you're gonna say?
Yes, no, no.
No, okay, so do we have any more comments on the payables? Do we have a motion to accept them as amended?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
There's 2 sets though.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go date by date. So let's go for April 18, 2025 to May 8, 2025. Do I have a motion to approve those payables?
I'll make that motion.
Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, passed. The next one will pass is the, do I have a motion to approve the payables as amended for May 9 through May 22?
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, those are passed. Okay, thank you, Kim.
That's it.
Yeah.
Back to your,
And his phone is used for.
you have a, one fills in on sales tax revenue.
So pretty.
So pretty.
Just had to find it, like, look at it,
It's colorful.
It is, colorful. I love it.
It's
It's great.
What are you looking at?
Where's the tax report, this one?
Your sales tax report is updated, I didn't just. Rob.
Sorry. There it is.
When you look at it, there's. We had a spike in the December 24. January and February 25 period, representing 13.8% increase over the same period of last year. March's revenue decreased 3.8%. From March 24. I think it's mostly due to weather fluctuating the ski tourism. There wasn't a whole lot of snow in March.
And that was reflected in Summit County too, they were
Yeah,
making a
Summit
lot of
County.
headlines that their taxes were down, yeah, revenues were down.
The increase we saw in January and February and especially December last year. My opinion more than makes up that. The first 3 months of 25 are actually up 3.5% over the last 3 months, over the first 3 of 24. First 3 of 25 are up 3.9% compared to a 5-year average. The trailing 6 months are up 7.8%. And this chart includes cigarette sales, marijuana sales, and general sales tax.
Are those under retail and services? Or other?
These numbers are. Remain all the numbers included,
Yeah, okay,
so not just
yes, I understand.
retails and services.
Great.
The other and manufacturing, we don't have any giant mills.
I was gonna say, where's GM?
Yeah, what are we manufacturing?
Manufacturing is anything that somebody makes and sells online,
Like Etsy?
like
Yeah.
like Etsy, like
Maria's stuff that she sells, that she ships.
Okay,
We count
okay.
that.
somebody makes it in Georgetown, sells it in person or online, and sends it somewhere.
Okay.
They have made it, manufactured it.
Huh.
Some stuff. And then the south of 10th Street is this side of town. Historic side, and north is.
Everything else?
Typically,
I'm a little surprised by that,
Yeah.
that's like, cause so for the trend we've seen for
years
years.
is the
It's
opposite.
typically north,
Yes.
yeah,
I checked that, I worked on this for a while.
That's amazing. That is different.
See,
Right.
see, the historic district is getting its due, we don't need any more signage.
It's.
Maybe
I
because
think
Dollar
it's
General's not open yet.
December sales tax.
Well, we should be celebrating them when they reopen if they're more.
I'd like to
Bringing
see
in
that.
10 grand worth of.
I'd like to see the difference in numbers when, after they open, yeah.
so,
Yeah, these numbers down on the bottom is just for,
The 3 months.
no, it's just for March. It's just a 1 month.
That's a
Wow.
These
snapshot, yeah.
These numbers here equal March.
Okay.
So the next time you get this report, you'll get
Pretty
maybe a reflection of the next.
This
That's
is really
great.
good.
Thank
news.
you. This
I
is
think.
really great. Can I ask a question just
No.
to cause some pains? Would it be possible in the future sales tax revenue, if you split out our self-collected lodging tax? Could that be another piece?
Got it.
Down here at.
Yeah,
Lodging.
yeah,
Say please.
please.
That would be good intel for our next.
And just the self-collected piece, that not the, not anything else that comes in from them on the regular sales tax, whatever. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Please and thank you. Thank you, Kid. Number that.
Thank you.
Assistant.
It's starting.
Thank you, okay.
thank you.
Assistant Town Administrator report.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you all knew that we had hired Deb McWilliams shortly after Dennis started, and he is a full-time member of our water and sewer team. So we're excited to have him on board. We also recently hired Marnie May to work the Road and Bridge, and Bob Hamilton's son, Bob A. Hamilton, will be starting June 2nd, along with Jay Nixon for our Parks Department. They're both part-time season. So just so you know, we have new staff in Georgetown and we're excited to have all of them. They're all excellent gentlemen. We also want to let you know that what we're calling the linear park, which is just the park piece of phase 2 of Lakeview Flats, was approved by the DRC at the last DRC meeting. So we're excited about that. We are still working on the water hydrant bit to make sure that we have access to water for the foundational plantings. There won't be anything that needs watering over time, but for establishment purposes, because we are working on getting that park to be deeded over to the town pending a maintenance agreement, so, but the design of that was approved, which is exciting. I finally got to fixing those resolutions, so Mary, just so you know, I know you're gonna be out of town, you should be receiving emails that add Georgia and Dennis and Hugh to our bank accounts. So please sign those, so you can get Georgia and Dennis on as signers and Hugh on as somebody.
Yeah, I can go on with those.
So I'll text you about it when it goes out, but Georgia signed those today. Thank you for helping me fix those, Jerry. We will get that set up tomorrow with the bank, now that we have them signed, so. So I attend the MAC meetings, which the acronym is escaping me right now, but it's like our Regional Emergency Management Team. Meetings that are quarterly, and just so you know, we have a shelter training on June 2nd, if you're interested in attending. And then specifically, and just so you know, and I'll send you a specific invite for this, but they set up, Clarissa, our new emergency manager, set up a TIMS, which is Traffic Incident Management System training for Georgetown volunteers specifically, and that will be on June 11th. So that's for situations such as leaf peeping, where we ask people to man gates and allow locals only through them, roundabout management, if it gets too crowded. We have asked volunteers to help us with that in the past. We're getting training for those people. So Clarissa set that up. Sergeant Abe will be leading that. It's gonna be 9:30 to noon on June 11th. So that one I'll send an invite out to people that are on our volunteer list as well. But invite anybody that's interested in volunteering, they can kind of learn about traffic incident management. You stole it earlier, but I ordered name tags and they are here June 9th or 10th, so please. And I also got to tour our dispatch, JetCom, last week, which was really interesting. They have a really cool setup down there and learned a lot about how dispatch works for the county, and got access to Lookout Alert, which is the texting service. There's additional training I have to get to access the full suite of options, but we do have that texting service available to us right now, so that's what I have.
Thank you very much.
Real quick, on the park down at from Centennial, they're indicating that they're adding another dock. So I would just ask that whichever entity of this town organization sees that it's consistent with the other styles that we have, that we kind of.
He's really great about getting the specific, not even just like mimicking what we've done in other places, like he's working with specific manufacturers that we order from,
Okay.
so I think the dock will literally be basically exactly the same, from the same manufacturers that their docks.
Thanks.
I have a quick question. I don't know, I just noticed that we had an attendee in the Zoom, like, did we give that person a chance during audience business?
I don't know if we had them on there.
Because we were switching from the
Because we were
webinar to.
Yeah, we
switching
just
from the
switched
webinar.
to-
Right.
So I would defer to you, police judge, on what you wanna do, I just didn't know if we needed to acknowledge that presence.
Do we need to, Jerry?
No, I mean, you've passed already
Okay, so we're good.
citizens direct comment.
Okay, thank you. And who is it? Do we know who it is?
It's Cameron Marlin from CCMRD.
Okay. Why don't we go with Dennis, your report?
Just a couple of things, thank you. I know that you all pour over the Friday email, but there was a mention of the opportunity for a tour of the reservoir. If you did not see that, I talked to a couple of you and you said you have an interest to go. If you have not responded, please send me a response saying that you want to participate. I'm thinking that that would probably be organized sometime in the next month, so please let me know. Secondly, I have had a great opportunity to interact with a lot of business owners downtown. One in particular is going to be doing some painting of their storefronts, a row of 4 storefronts downtown. So if you haven't already, you'll see a lot of scaffolding and painting upgrades to the front of 4 different businesses, so be aware of that. Thank you, that's it.
How long
Thank
do we
you.
anticipate the street being torn up there?
For the
What's
lead
the lead
service,
service?
I think Ryan said 2 weeks.
Just curious.
Okay.
All right, very good. Any other matters?
What is she?
Thank you. Is she raising her hand?
She said unfortunately I wasn't able to join the meeting until 6:18 again, and I was told I could find the first 18 minutes of public meeting in the work session recording link to be provided in the future.
Yes, I have a separate link to that first 18 minutes I'm gonna provide her,
Oh, okay.
so that she can show what we did in the first week.
Oh, okay, I just wanna make sure like.
Do I need to reach out to her?
I just wanna make sure if she was here for any like audience business.
I'll reach
that
out to
we
her
didn't
afterwards.
Skip, we didn't keep her from that. Or we didn't keep her, I mean, cause if, yeah, that's all.
Yeah, okay,
So
thank you.
I just.
All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
No, we didn't make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I'm sorry, make a motion. So, I'm sorry. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Moved.
Second.
Oh. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.
All right, Cameron, but it's good to see you virtually.